Hi, and welcome to another video by Jim the Car Guy. Okay, so obviously this is underneath the hood itself. We all got to remove this cover right here. We have a couple of 10mm bolts that hold it in place, and we're going to take this cover off so we can gain access to where we need to work. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come down underneath here. Hopefully I can get some lighting in here so you can see a little bit better. Let's see what we can do here. It's probably going to be okay, but we'll see how it goes. We are going to take off this drive belt right here. We are going to pull off that tensioner. We're going to release the tension on it. We're going to take that drive belt off. I will tell you this, if you don't know the routing of the drive belt, you should take a picture of it. If you can't take a picture of it, draw it out so you know how to put that drive belt back on. We are going to take off these covers on the side right here. The upper timing belt covers here and here underneath the side there. We are going to take off that wheel right there, and we will be removing the inside fender splash guard down inside there as well. Now we will take off that lower crankshaft pulley down there. You can see it, but before we do that though, we are going to line the timing marks up just to make sure that everything is set exactly as it's supposed to be. Now you see down there, I'm going to see if I can point it out to you. Let me get a tool so I can point it out. After we remove everything and we're ready to take this apart, before we do anything, we're going to bring, see where it says 0 on this timing mark right here? It says 0 right on here. And we're going to line up the little notch on that crankshaft pulley right there so that the 0 on the timing cover and that little notch that we're going to line up is not there now, but when we turn it, it will be. We're going to make sure that that lines up with the 0 on there before we remove the drive belt itself. Alright, so alright, let me give you an example of what kind of tools you're going to need, and then we're going to get started. Okay, this is an example of some of the basic tools you're going to be needing to get this job apart. We are going to be using a 1/4-inch ratchet set to take off the covers on the plastic timing covers. We will probably be using that driver as well. We're going to need an assortment of sockets, a ratchet, a light so we can see what we're doing. This tool here is used to release the tension on the tensioner itself for the drive belt, an air gun to take the wheels off, as well as the crankshaft bolt, and of course a torque wrench to torque the crankshaft pulley back in once we have the job back together. We are going to probably need a couple of assorted like smaller wrenches, 10mm, 12mm, 13mm wrenches, so we will get those over here, and that's it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do now is, and of course we're going to need a floor jack and a block of wood to put underneath the oil pan, because we will need to support the engine when we remove the engine mount. This mount actually right here, we're going to need to remove this engine mount here because that drive belt is going to go around the mount, so we will need to remove that. But we will talk about that. We're going to take out these bolts here, and we'll take it out down to the bottom there, but we will get to that when we get to it. And last but not least, we're most likely going to need a creeper to actually get underneath this thing to work on it, because once we have it up on the lift over here, we won't be able to lift it up any higher because we're going to have it supported on that jack right there. The engine is going to be supported on that jack. So alright, first thing we're going to do now, let's take off this cover and let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our cover off here. Okay, so now this opens up everything up inside here so we can gain access to these covers without a problem. Next thing we're going to do now is we're going to take that drive belt off. And remember, we talked about taking that drive belt off. We're going to use that tool to actually do it. So let me grab that tool and we'll continue there. Okay, now we are going to take this drive belt off, and the way we do that is this is the tensioner right here. The way you can tell where the tensioner is located, whether it's this one or this one. Is just grab the belt, pull it, and you see which one moves. So now we know that's the one that we need to move, and that's the direction that we need to pry it. So we're going to get in here with that tool that we have. Goes on here, just like this, and you pry on it like that, and then we take the belt off. Now I am going to have to grab that with my other hand, so let me set the camera up, and that's what we're going to do. Alright, now if you don't have this tool here, this just gives you additional leverage. If you don't have that tool, you can go on here with just a normal 17mm wrench and pry on it. It's just a little bit tighter because you don't have the leverage that you would normally do, but you can do it just like this here and pull that belt right off. Alright, so you know what, let me just do it with the wrench here and I'll show you how it's done. This makes it a little bit easier because of the length of the leverage on here, but we can put this to the side and we can do it just like this here. You just pry on this wrench just like this, you take the belt and you slide the belt off like that, and then you release this and let the wrench loosely come off, so you don't want to snap it down. Alright, now we'll take the belt off and we'll get it out of our way. Now remember, you want to make sure you have a picture of this or a schematic before you take the belt off. Alright, so let's take the belt out of there now. It's a little bit tight coming through here because of the location of where it's situated, but it does come out. So you can turn the belt a little bit sideways through here and get it out like that. And then we're going to take it totally off and get this out of the way. If it gets caught on anything, don't pull it. Make sure it's disconnected. And we'll put this to the side. Alright, now the next thing we're going to do is we can take off this cover here and here. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to take out these bolts here. So let me do that and we'll continue. I always like to use a 1/4 inch set whenever I'm doing this, just to avoid snapping anything. Take this cover off, just like this. And now that opens up the timing belt. This is your timing belt. We are going to do the exact same thing in this cover down in the back, right over in here. We're going to take this this cover off. Let's get you in here so you can see what we're doing. We are going to remove this cover down in the back as well, down inside there. So let me get in here and we'll take out the bolts down there and we'll get that cover off down on the bottom here as well. Now we are going to take this mount out, but we're not going to do this yet. We're going to go down on the bottom. We're going to continue down on the bottom. And alright, let me take this cover off. We're going to do the exact same way. We're going to take out all of those 10mm screws. Okay, I did decide to, before I take this side off over here, I did decide I'm going to take off this tensioner here, because as you can see, the tensioner does block that, that cover, the lower part of the timing case cover, so I am going to take that out. There should be a bolt, yeah, right down inside here. It's probably going to be a 14mm bolt. We're going to take out that 14mm bolt, and we're going to take that tensioner assembly out of there right now. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to film it and do it at the same time. Okay. Okay, he's loosening up now. I can probably take it out by hand. Fairly long bolt, and now we'll take the tensioner assembly out. I'm going to need 2 hands to do this. Okay, to get that tensioner assembly out of there, I did need to take off this idler pulley right here. So we just unscrewed that screw just like that. It's 14mm, and we took the idler pulley out so we can remove the tensioner assembly. Alright, so now we're pretty much all set with that. We're going to take off that cover right over there. Once we have that cover off, we'll continue. Just remember how you get the cover out. Because you will need to put it back in the same way. Okay, let me show you. Okay, you see what I did? I just moved these so that we could actually get that past the cover. So we'll just put this off to the side for now, just this way here. And now we're going to go down the bottom, and we'll continue down the bottom. In there, I'll show you. Okay, that's the cover that we're going to take off. There's a couple of 10 millimeters right here and right here. So let's take that cover off and we'll continue. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to just crack this bolt loose here. We're not going to loosen it up all the way. We're just going to crack it loose right now. Now the reason we cracked it loose and we're not taking it totally out is because we want to rotate this until we get this timing mark right here to line up with 0 up on top right there. So now we're going to turn it until it's around over here, close to the 0, and then we're going to go up top and we'll make sure our camshafts are actually on 0 as well. Alright, so let me just turn that and we'll line it up. Okay, so now we're lined up. I'll bring you in, I'll show you. You'll see closer from up top, of course, but you can see that's the mark right here, and it's lined up right here with the 0. So let's go up top and we'll continue up top now. Okay, now this, I'm actually really happy to show it up this way here. Instead of trying to explain to you, I can actually show you. Now you remember down on the bottom, down on the crankshaft down there, I lined it up to 0. Now our camshaft right here is supposed to line up with this little notch right up on the top right there. As you can see, we have no camshaft mark here. The mark is actually all the way down over here. So what we need to do is we're 180 degrees out. What we need to do is rotate the crankshaft one complete revolution, and that will bring this mark here all the way up to the top here, and it'll also bring up that mark down there. I don't know if you can see that mark down there, but you can see that mark is also out of where it's supposed to be. This is where it's supposed to be right here. See that little mark right there? It's supposed to be lined up there, and as you can see, let me point it out. I don't know if you can see this, but as you can see, there is the mark all the way down on the bottom right there. So it's 180 degrees out. We need to actually rotate the engine one complete revolution to bring that mark up so that we could line it up right here. And you want to do this before you take this apart if you're just doing basic maintenance on this. If it broke, obviously you're going to have to reset it, by hand. But if it didn't break, you're just going to bring all your marks until they line up to where they're supposed to be. This mark here and that mark right down there has got to be up over there. So I'm going to go down on the bottom, and I'm going to rotate it, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to set you up so you can see, but let's see how it goes. All right, so now I'm going to try to rotate the engine. It's a little tight because I'm in the way. Tough for me to do because I can't see it, but we're going to get as close as we can. That's the mark right there. We have to turn a little bit more. Now, if you can't see it, you can put a little mark on here. That's the mark right there. So we need to turn this just a little bit more. Until we get it to line up just a hair more. And that should do it. Okay, so that one will lined up. Let's take a look at the rest of them. See what I mean about a longer extension? Alright, let's get this out of the way for now. We're going to see if this one is lined up over here. Okay, that one is lined up right there now. And now we're going to go down to the bottom. We're going to see if that bottom one is lined up. And there it is. You can see it's lined up right there as well. Okay, so what we're going to do next now is we're going to come in here and we're going to take off this crankshaft bolt. We're going to make sure that this camshaft, the crankshaft here does not rotate when we take this off. So, all right, let's get set up and we'll continue. Okay, so now I shot this off with the air gun, so this is totally loose now. We're just going to take this out, just like this, put it to the side. Now that bolt, we will need to torque that back on. And this, we just rock it back and forth, just like that. And it comes right out, just like that. And we'll put this off to the side as well. But that is the notch that I was talking about. All right? Now, this is going to be a little tough to film here, but I'm going to take out all of these bolts, all of these 10mm bolts that you see in here. I'm going to take out all of these 10mm bolts, and we're going to take that cover off. Now, we have a lot of the 10mm down the bottom here. And we also have a couple of bolts up underneath here, and down in the back there. So I'm going to take all this out. I'm going to pull that timing case cover off, and then we're going to come back and we're going to support the engine, and we're going to jack this up and take that mount out of the way. So let me get that cover off and we'll be back. Okay, we got all the bolts out of it. There's probably 10, 12 bolts in there. And then we're just going to take this and we're just going to pull it. Don't break it. Maybe something stuck in there still. Okay, and there's one more bolt up in the top, right up in here. So let me just take that bolt out there. That's why you never want to force it, because you're never positive that you have all the screws out. If it don't come out easy enough, stop and take an extra minute and look it over. Okay. Alright, so now you can see the cover is loose and it comes right out, but that's the screw we're still up in the top. All right. All right, but as you can see, there's quite a few screws inside there. All right, so that's the cover. We know that our timing marks are lined up, and I just want to point out one more thing to you. Let's get this out of the way. You see, right inside here, we lined up the timing mark with 0, but as you can see, that little notch right in there, that little notch lines up right here as well. So just in case your belt broke and you couldn't line it up properly, you could line it up right there. All right, or even if it didn't break, you could line it up exactly right there. But as you can see, we're right on the money here and up on the top. So, all right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to come up underneath here, and we're going to take out this tensioner right here, and then we're going to bring it over on the bench, and we need to put a pin through here to lock this down out of the way. So, all right, let me get a piece of wood. We're going to put a piece of wood underneath that oil pan. We're going to jack it up slightly, and then we're going to come up here, and we're going to take out this bolt here and those 3 bolts right there, so we can take this mount out so we can get that belt out of there, because as you can see, the belt goes right through in here. Well, maybe you can't see. See how the belt goes right through the tensioner here? I mean the bracket, so we'll need to move that out of the way. So, all right, let me get set up and we'll continue. Okay. Now we have the engine supported down the bottom. We're going to take out these bolts. Okay, that's part of the mount. Now we're going to have to take out the other part of the mount down on the bottom right here. And the way we do that is in here, there's a couple of 14mm bolts. We need to unscrew those bolts there. So let me get set up with a ratchet, and we're going to take this mount off right here. Okay, so now this is the 3rd bolt coming out. The other 2 are already loosened up and out. The one on the bottom is totally out. The one on the back is just laying in the bracket itself because you cannot pull the bolt out. See, the bolts are so long, you cannot get them past here, so you need to leave them inside here, just like that. All right, so we'll put this off to the side now. We're going to hold on to this on the side as well, because this one will go back in right there when we put it back together. So we're going to put it in there for safekeeping. All right, next thing we're going to do now is we're going to take that timing belt off. So, all right, let me get my tools out of here, and we'll go down the bottom. We're going to take that timing belt off. Okay, so now that we're ready to take this off, we are making sure that we're lined up exactly right there. We're making sure we're exactly lined up right down inside here, and we're making sure we're lined up right up inside there. Now take a look at how that belt is on there, because that's the way you're going to have to put it back on. All right, now the way we take it off is you come down underneath here. Now I'm going to have to take this off, but I don't think I could film it for you because it's a tight squeeze. We're going to take out this bolt here and this bolt here, and then we're going to take this tensioner here over to the bench, and we're going to compress it in until we can put the pin right through that area right there. So let's try to take that off there. I don't know if you're going to see anything, but we're going to take those 2 bolts out and we'll come right back. Okay, so we cracked these loose now, and now we're going to take them out. Bolt out like that, and then we'll take our tensioner like this, and we're going to bring this over to the workbench right now. Okay, so now we have the hydraulic tensioner in a vise. We have to do this in the vertical position. We cannot do it in a horizontal position because we need to get all the air out of it. If you do it horizontally, you wind up with air inside there. So we're just going to turn this down very slowly. Now you could turn it with a wrench, you could turn it by hand, and it just goes down nice and slow. You can see it. supposed to look like. Right? Just till it's at the very edge. Just like that. And then we can release the pressure. And now it's being held in like that. See? That's what it's supposed to look like. All right, let's go back to the truck, change the belt, and let's continue. Okay, so while that tensioner is being compressed on the bench, we're going to come in here and we're going to remove this timing belt, and we're going to put the new timing belt back in its exact same location. Now, I just want to point this out. You see how this part of the belt is extremely tight, and this as well, and this down here. This is the part that needs to be extremely tight and exactly in place. The part that needs to have the slack in it is actually this part right over here. All right, so we're going to take this belt off. We're going to put our new belt on, and then we'll come right back. Okay, now tensioner is bolted back on. We torque these back in place, and as you can see now, we have play on the tensioner itself. We have a little bit of play on here, so now we can get the belt on as needed. We may have to remove this pulley here, but we're going to see how it goes. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So, all right, so this is where the slack is on this side of the belt, and this side of the belt is tight. All right, so let me change that belt, and once we get the belt on, I'll show you what we're going to do next. All right, basically we're going to come up here, we're going to take all of the belt off of here, we'll put the new belt back on, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so now, this is what we're going to do. We have the belt back in position, but before we let anything go, we take that the tension off of the tensioner. We're going to make sure we mark a line on the belt, make sure it's lined up there. Mark a line right there as well. Just check it again. Okay, it's lined up there. Let's go down the bottom. You might take a walk down there with me. Down there. You can see in there. See we're lined up right there as well. Exactly on the money. Next thing we're going to do now, see we have a little bit of slack here. This is nice and tight. And what we do is you come in here and you pull the pin on your hand grenade, like that. And now the tensioner pushed back up, and it's going to hold tension on that belt. So let's push that slid out a little bit. We're going to check the marks one more time before we start putting it back together. That's right on the money there. That's right on the money right there. It's a little tough to see down there, but let's get in there so we can see for sure. As you can see, that one is lined up Right on the money as well. All right, and that's it. All right, now we're going to start putting it all back together now. As you can see, it's nice and tight here and here. And that's it. We're going to start putting it together now. Okay, we got our bracket back in, and we screw these bolts in now by hand. And now we can tighten them up. Alright, so now our mount is caught. We're going to put that little 10mm bolt that holds this bracket here. This was just to hold it out of the way so it didn't interfere with anything. Okay. Alright, now we'll catch the other bolt down in here that holds the wiring in place. Now, even though you see that socket on there and the extension, I'm turning it in by hand just so I don't cross-thread it. Okay, it's nice and tight. Alright, so now our electrical is hooked on temporarily. Now we're going to put the rest of our mount back together up here. Alright, so now we can lower our jack down that's down below, and our motor will be actually held back in by the mount itself. So that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, we're going to go down the bottom. We're going to put that cover back on, that timing case cover on the bottom. Okay, now this is going to be a little tough to film, as you can assume. We're going to put this back up in here, and then we're going to put all of those screws that we previously removed. We're going to put all those screws back in. So let me get all of those screws caught, and then we're going to go back and put our crankshaft pulley on. And these, you want to screw everything in by hand before you even bring an air gun in to do anything else. All right? Nice and tight. All right, next thing we're going to do, we're going to put our pulley back on here. And that just pushes right on, just like that. We're going to catch our bolt right in here. We're going to screw it in by hand, and now we're going to go inside and look up the torque specs on this. And we're going to torque this crankshaft bolt back in position. Very important that you torque that bolt down. So, all right, let me torque this down, and then we'll come right back. Okay, now that we have this crankshaft pulley torqued on, it's 130 foot-pounds, I might add. This is torqued on nice and tight, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go up on top, and we'll put those covers back on the timing, on the upper part of the timing case itself. That would be these covers here and here, and we're just going to reverse the procedure that we did before, and we'll get them back on. Okay, before we let this down onto the ground, we're going to put the cover back up underneath the bottom here. So we're just going to put that back in the way we took it out, like this. And now we'll catch the 4 bolts. Well, I hope you can see this. Now, this is your tensioner, and you can see that little tiny nub right here, or a little tiny piece sticking up here. It's got to fit in down the bottom down here, where we previously removed it from. So that's very important that that fits in there. If not, if this is not in place, of course you're not going to be able to rotate it to get that in there. So, all right, let's put this back in there. I can feel it, that this is actually up around the 11 o'clock position. So we're just going to lay this in here now. the bolt first. And once I catch the bolt, then you just move it around and you can feel it snap right in to that piece right there. Alright? Okay, so our tensioner is now caught. Let's tighten it up to make sure it's nice and snug. You don't want to over tighten it and strip it out because you're screwing it into aluminum, all right? Next thing we're going to do now is we're going to get our idler pulley back on there. I know you can't see it, but it's actually just basically putting it on where you previously removed it from. I'm going to screw it down by hand as tight as we can. And now we'll just snug it up. Alright, let's get our drive belt now. We'll lay our drive belt in there. Okay, so now we're going to lay our drive belt in. What we're going to do is we're going to put everything, I don't know if you can see this okay, we're going to put everything back in where it was, and the last piece we're going to put on is going to be right up here on the tensioner on the top there. So let's lay the belt in there and we'll get this wrapped up. Before we take the wrench out, we're going to make sure that that pulley is in the grooves where it's supposed to be. Alright, and now that we're sure that everything is where it belongs, I'll bring you in there, I'll show you. Alright, drive belt is on where it belongs down there. See? Just going to look everything over again, make sure it's all set, and the only thing we have left are the bolts to hold that cover up on top right here, which we're going to leave that off right now. And alright, let's clean all our tools up and let's fire it up and make sure it's okay. Okay. Alright, let's get all of this stuff out of the way. We checked and double checked to make sure everything is as it was supposed to be. Alright, let's fire it up. Okay, as you can hear, it does run, and it runs good. Make sure all your bolts, go over it mentally in your head, go through it step by step by step to make sure you tightened everything up the way it's supposed to be. Make sure you had no extra bolts. There is no such thing as a leftover bolt. If you have a leftover bolt, you're screwed up. It's got to go somewhere. We're going to put that cover back on, and that's it. We're going to take it for a road test, make sure it's okay, and that's it. It's out the door. I got to make a phone call because we may have to do back brakes in this too, so we'll see what the customer has to say. All right, as always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.